Hello students, welcome to KENE'S Educare, a group of KENE solutions. This is part 5 of lesson number 12, sound. So in this lesson, in this part of the lesson sound, we are going to discuss more about now what we are left with is about the further part, like we were studying about the time period, frequency, right? Everything we discussed, the basic terms. We are just left with few parts that we are going to start today, right? And like maybe in 2 more parts I'll be completing with the lesson. Now this lesson is the easiest lesson like so far as I know and like as I can see. Okay, so make sure that whatever we have studied in the lesson about the longitudinal wave, about the transverse wave, about frequency, time period, oscillation, wave, wavelength, everything along with the activity, you are clear with it. Okay, so before I proceed with this part, I want each one of you to please revise whatever we have studied in the past 4 parts of the lesson sound, because like revision is very important from my point of view, and I want each one of you to develop this habit of like revising each and everything that you study. Okay, so please start revising whatever we have discussed so far in the lesson, everyone. Like you need to revise the notes that you have made starting from part 1 till part 4. Okay, I hope every one of you have started the revision part. So we have started the lesson by discussing on production of sound, where we discussed it with respect to an activity, right? So please go through this slide quickly, everyone. So I hope now you are able to. You should be able to explain about the production of sound in your own words along with the activity now. Okay? Because I want each one of you to be thorough with whatever we are studying. It shouldn't be like we are just like studying the further part and we are not revising the previous part, right? So make sure that you know whatever we are studying accordingly. After studying about this production of sound, the next thing that we discussed is propagation of sound. So over here we discussed on how exactly like whatever sound has been produced has been audible to us. Then we discussed on about what is a wave, what are mechanical waves, everything in detail, right? So I want each one of you to please go through the slide as well on propagation of sound. I hope every one of you are going through this slide. After discussing about propagation of sound in detail, learning about the wavelength, mechanical waves, everything, the next thing that we discussed is propagation of sound through air. Okay? So please go through it because this slide has one of the most important concept, that is on compression and rarefaction. So I want you all to please go through it quickly. I hope every one of you are going through this slide. After discussing about propagation of sound through air, We discussed on a vibrating object producing a series of compression and rarefaction and how exactly that is going to look like, right? After this, we discussed on that sound needs a medium to travel, right? So please go through it, everyone. I hope every one of you are going through it. After this, after discussing in detail about that sound needs a medium to travel, we discussed on that sound waves are longitudinal wave, and over here we even discussed on an activity and about the transverse wave as well, right? So please go through it, everyone. After discussing about this longitudinal transverse wave and all, we discussed on the characteristics of the sound wave, right? So I want you all to please go through it quickly, because over here we have information on the crest part, the trough part, about the wavelength, about the SI unit, everything in detail has been given over here, right? So please go through it, everyone. I hope every one of you are going through the slide properly or revising it, because your revision is very important. Okay? After discussing the characteristics of the sound wave, we discussed on how exactly the source of sound with respect to the speaker, like what will be the density variation and what will be the pressure variation accordingly, and on the basis of that what kind of graphical representation we can have, right? So we have studied them all. I want each one of you to please go through it quickly. After this we discussed on the frequency of the sound wave, and over here we have like the definition of the frequency and what is the unit that we use to like represent frequency, that has been given. So please go through it, everyone. I hope every one of you are going through it, and even you need to go through the wavelength, the short wavelength and the long wavelength that they have shown. You need to go through that as well. Okay? I hope everyone have been through this slide properly where we discussed on the frequency of the sound wave. Now, after discussing in detail about the frequency, the next thing that we discussed on was the time period of the sound wave, right? So over here we have the formula as well as we have the you can say definition and how exactly we represent frequency. Everything has been given on this slide, along with how exactly the high frequency and the low frequency waves will look like. Even we have discussed on that, right? So I want each one of you to please go through it quickly. So sorry. After discussing on the time period of the sound wave, we discussed on the amplitude of the sound wave as well, right? So please go through it, everyone. Like here we have two definition of the amplitude which has been given. So you should be at least knowing how to like explain amplitude. But for understanding, the second part is like the easiest one, that amplitude of the sound wave is the height of the crest or the trough, which we represent as letter A, right? After discussing amplitude, here we have the explanation like what exactly is the difference between the wavelength and the amplitude, which has been shown over here, right? So please go through this, everyone. After discussing the basic difference between wavelength and amplitude, we discussed on pitch and loudness of sound, right? So over here we have the short wavelength, long wavelength, everything which has been explained with respect to pitch and loudness of the sound, right? So I want you all to please go through it quickly. I hope you all are going through it quickly. After this pitch and loudness of sound, here we discussed about the amplitude, like how it's going to be the louder and like when it is going to be the louder, how what kind of wave will be formed, and if it is going to be softer at that time what kind of wave will be formed, right? So that has been explained over here, and I want each one of you to please go through it quickly. So over here both the statements are important, that The loudness of the sound depends upon the amplitude of the vibration. And the other important statement, that if the amplitude is going to be bigger, the sound will be loud, and if amplitude will be smaller, the sound will be soft, right? After this, we discussed on the speed of the sound, where we have the formula for calculating the speed as well, right? So please go through this slide as well, everyone. I hope every one of you are going through it. After this, like we even discussed on the speed of sound in different media at 25 degrees Celsius, right? So please go through it, everyone. Then now we need to discuss on reflection of sound. So see, like light, sound also get reflected at the surface of solid or liquid and follows the law of reflection. Now if you all remember, we have studied the law of reflection before, which states that, what does it states? That the angle of incidence is going to be equal to angle of reflection. This is one thing that we had discussed. This is one of the law that we have, right? That angle of incidence is going to be equal to angle of reflection. And the second law that we have, it states that the incident ray, the reflected ray and the normal, they all lie in the same plane, right? So you need to know that the incident ray, the reflected ray and the normal, they all lie in the same plane. This is the second law of reflection. So like this law of reflection we have studied under light part, okay? But like light, sound also follows this laws of reflection, where it states that angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection, and the incident ray, the reflected ray and the normal, they all lie in the same plane. Okay, these are the two laws of reflection that we have. After that, now we have this activity to discuss, where we will be studying about this reflection of sound in detail. So for that, we need to take two pipes of same length, and we need to arrange them on a table near a wall or a metal plate. What are we going to do? We are going to take two pipes of same length and we are going to arrange them on the table or on metal plate. Okay, then after arranging it, keep a clock near the open end of one pipe and try to hear the sound of the clock through the other pipe by adjusting the position of the pipe. What would you do? You're going to take a clock, and that you need to take it near the open end of one pipe and then try to hear the sound of the clock through the other pipe. Okay, then after doing this, you need to measure the angle of incidence and reflection. What are you going to measure? Angle of incidence and angle of reflection, and then lift the second pipe and try to hear the sound. And it will be seen that, like, once you try this activity, you will find out that angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection and the incident ray, the reflected ray, and the normal, they all lie in the same plane. It means this activity is going to follow the law of reflection. Okay, so I want each one of you to please go through this slide quickly. Even go through the activity, you need to know how to explain the activity. Okay. I hope every one of you are writing the law of reflection. Okay, so see this, that the plate which has been labeled, that is the mirror. Then we have one reflected ray, then we have one incident ray, and in the center we have the normal. Okay, Then after that we have the next part as echo, like what exactly echo and reverberation is. Echo, reverberation and uses of. Okay, so like I'll start with this echo part, echo, reverberation and uses of multiple reflection of sound, as like it's a long part to go, right? For now just remember the laws of reflection and the activity for that. Okay, and you will see that the activity that we studied is going to follow the law of reflection. Law of reflection that states that angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection, and the other law is the incident ray, the reflected ray and the normal, they all lie in the same plane. Okay, so after that, in the next class, I'm going to start with echo, reverberation, and lastly, the uses of multiple reflection of sound. And after discussing all three, the next part that we have is like the range of hearing. What is the exact range of hearing in which the sound is audible to us, and the range of hearing in which the sound is not audible to us. Okay. Then at the end, we will be discussing on the uses of the ultrasonic sound, where we will be discussing about the sonar as well. As you know that we have more questions on sonar which has been asked right at the end, so make sure you understand it when I teach you. And at the end, the last part for the lesson is studying about the structure of the human ear, how exactly the sound is audible to you, which are the different parts present in the human ear. Everything we will be discussing in detail along with the structure. Okay, and then we have the summary discussion for the whole lesson, sound, which we will be doing. Okay, and after this we will be discussing on the next part, that is exercise. So we have 23 exercise questions to discuss at the end. We will be discussing them. Okay, and now I'm going to show you all the slides one by one, so I want each one of you to please go through all the questions that I'm showing you on screen. Okay, So we have like altogether 22 questions to discuss based on the whole lesson. I hope every one of you are going through the questions. So this is the last question that we will be discussing at the end of the lesson, and this is how we will be ending up with the lesson sound. And I hope whatever we have discussed in this whole part sound, each one of you are very much clear with it. So I'll be continuing with the rest of the part in the next class. Thank you everyone.